Do you know what, Keir Starmer? I think you are the most divisive and deplorable Prime Minister this country has ever seen.
It's a completely different thing to say we are going to reach in to people who are lawfully here and start removing them. They are our neighbours.
That proposal is immoral, to deport people who are already here if they don't pass more stringent rules. Do you think it's a racist policy?
Well, I do think it is a racist policy. I do think it's immoral. It needs to be called out for what it is.
The nerve the Prime Minister had this morning to brand Reform UK's policy of mass deportations, that's what it is, as racist and immoral, shows how deeply divisive and out of touch with the public he really is. According to ONS data, 4.83 million people came to the UK since 2020. That is the same size as the populations of Birmingham, Manchester and Cardiff combined. Or 1 million more people than the entire population of Wales in just the space of 4 years. That is unsustainable. It is not racist to say that almost 5 million arrivals when our country is already on its knees is the wrong thing for Britain. It flies in the face of the votes people have cast time and time again for over a decade, including Brexit, doesn't it? For multiple Tory governments who promised you tens of thousands of migrants but delivered you millions. Well, Zia Youssef, Reform's policy chief, has nailed it in my opinion. He said Labour's message to the country is clear. Pay hundreds of billions for foreign nationals to live off of the state forever, or Labour will call you racist. Is it any surprise Keir Starmer is now the most unpopular Prime Minister on record? An Ipsos poll shows him at minus 66%. That is worse than Liz Truss at her lowest, worse than Thatcher during the poll tax riots. That's how bad it is. Even his own party won him out. 53% of his own party members want a new leader. Only 31% want him to stay, according to a Survation poll. No wonder. Starmer, do you think he answered a straightforward and simple question about his new flagship digital ID policy?
It's to be really clear, you must have ID, mandatory digital ID, in order to work, because we have to stop illegal working. If you look at any of the raids, we've massively increased the number of raids on working premises. It is absolutely clear that people are working illegally in numbers.
That was a classic deflection. The actual answer that you know at home already is that it won't stop illegal migrants working in the black economy at all. I mean, it really won't. We already have national insurance and passports for this exact same problem, but they're working cash in hand, aren't they? Digital ID is not going to solve it. There's another walking, talking disaster for this government too.
I want to pay credit to the populist far right. They are very good at comms, right? And, you know, to agree that they get a head start because they are unburdened by having to tell the truth and having to be candid with people, and they are unburdened by the need to actually dive into the complexity to fashion real solutions that provide real answers and make real people's lives better.
Oh, I'm so bored of it. I'm so bored of hearing those two words, far right. The far right are good at comms. Maybe instead of smearing Reform UK and Nigel Farage, they should admit their own policies are deeply unpopular and clearly ineffective, and that the British people are rejecting this divisive politics. Because let me state the obvious for everyone. The public are sick to death of being branded racist for wanting secure borders. They're sick to death of a government mired in scandals while spending their hard-earned money on ideological nonsense. And they're sick to death of being told they must pay even more while basic services collapse.
How many homes have you built so far under Labour?
Well, do you know how long it takes for a planning application to go through?
Just how many?
Do you know how long it takes?
Just give me the figure.
Well, we're currently dealing with
the figure.
We're currently dealing with the tail end of what the Conservatives were doing, because it takes more than 18 months from an application to the home being built.
Please answer the question.
No, but I'm not going to take the blame for what the Tories did.
No,
I'm going to take the blame for what Labour does if it goes wrong subsequently.
We're
changing the rules to speed up planning so that the problem we're seeing now doesn't happen again in future.
How many houses have been built under Labour so far?
starts have gone up by 29%. What I can't
Can you
do...
give me a figure?
I know it's really low, and I'm appalled by it as
What's
well, but
the
that
figure?
is because the Conservatives didn't get the applications through.
Please don't tell me you don't know the number
Conservatives
as
didn't get the
housing
applications
secretary.
through.
Do you know?
29% up starts.
No. How
compared to the previous
how many new
year.
homes have been built since Labour took power?
I don't have the exact... I'm not Wikipedia.
You don't have...
No, I'm not Wikipedia.
No.
That's car crash, isn't it? That's a car crash interview. The British public deserve better than secretaries of state who get defensive because they don't even know the most basic numbers about their own portfolio, all while people like Steve Reed rake in a massive 150 grand taxpayer-funded salary. If that was a normal workplace, you'd be sacked. You'd be sacked, wouldn't you? If all these gripes make me far-right and a racist, then frankly, so be it. I'm sick to death of the name-calling. But I think it says more about this Labour government and its ministers and about the Prime Minister than it does about the vast majority of people in this country who share my concerns. And just a little bit on this developing story today, I want to just touch briefly on whether Keir Starmer dodged inheritance tax. It's been revealed that he gave land to his parents via a trust, potentially, that meant their estates would never pay death duties on the assets. I'm joined now by Mark Littlewood, the Director of Popular Conservatives, to discuss it. Mark, this specific story here, quite interesting. It is sent tax experts completely aloof because they are totally confused by the language the Prime Minister's using and his statements today on the BBC. Could you dive into it a little bit for us very briefly?
Yeah, Alex, let me try and explain it to you. And you're quite right. We don't have all the facts, so it's difficult to surmise exactly what's happened. But it seems on the face of it that a good number of years ago, many years ago, Keir Starmer wanted to gift his parents access to a few acres of land just by where they lived. Rather than giving it to them, he set up a trust fund, it appears. There's some confusion about that, meaning that they could have access to it for as long as they lived, and that right would die with them. Had he just given it to them, when they died, it would have been part of their estate, subject to inheritance tax, and Keir Starmer would have received, if you like, less money or have had to have paid inheritance tax on it. If he set up a trust about it, then they had access for their lives, but upon the death of the second, which was Keir Starmer's father, it's not part of their estate, so no inheritance tax is due on it. I don't think anybody's suggesting, even if that was the situation, that the Prime Minister has done anything illegal, but Labour politicians are very prone, aren't they, Alex, to say that you mustn't be seeking to avoid tax or run your affairs in a way that minimises your tax burden. And on the face of it, even if there's no illegality, he may have done that.
Yeah, and just to be clear, a similar charge was aimed at Angela Rayner, and she resigned her position from it, didn't she, Mark?
Yes, that's right. I mean, it does seem that she actually paid the wrong amount of tax under law. I don't think there's a suggestion that the Prime Minister has done that. The implication, the suggestion, the sting of the accusation here is that he may have ordered his affairs in a way to avoid tax. Totally legal to avoid tax, not legal to evade it and cheat the rules. But if you're avoiding tax and you're a Labour politician who has been rubbing their hands with glee when any time a political opponent has avoided tax, then a charge of hypocrisy might stick, even if there's no technical breach of our tax code.
Yeah, and, I think when you're also taxing farmers, you're whacking on a new inheritance tax, that sting is extra for many people across the country, isn't it? Well, listen, Mark Littlewood there, Director of Popular Conservatives, thank you. We'll have you back when we learn more about this story. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Mark. Going on to what I was talking about earlier, though, I want to bring my brilliant panel in here, political commentator Chloe Dobbs, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and political commentator Matthew Stadlin. Chloe, I promised I'd start with you because we didn't get time to get your thoughts on this topic before the break. Now, of course, Labour conference today has kicked off. Lots of comments flying around. Seemingly at least no attachment between some of the comms that they've all been saying different things about the same topic. But the Prime Minister, quite clear, he thought that Reform UK's policy of removing indefinite right to remain, leave to remain, is racist and immoral.
I thought that was ridiculous, and it just showed how desperate he was, where he outright lied and resorted for name-calling. Where he lied, and it wasn't in that short clip we showed, but he said that the reform policy will be kicking out our hard-working doctors, nurses and teachers that have contributed to this country. And I'm thinking, have you looked at reform's policy? It says you just need to show that you speak English and that you contribute. Sure, we maybe don't know exactly what the salary threshold is at the moment, but I would think a doctor, nurse or a teacher, they speak English and they contribute and they work. They're trying to get rid of people who come to this country, live in a community where they don't bother to speak English, they just speak to people from their country and they sit on benefits. The people who have contributed to this country will get to stay, so that's wrong. And then to just brand it as racist. I mean, we've looked at Lord Hermer saying, the far right are good at comms. I tell you what would make you good at comms is stop just dismissing the opinions of vast swathes of the public as far right and racist, because that is just exacerbating his lack of popularity. As you said, he's got one of the worst approval net approval rating ever. There's a reason for that. It's because members of the public look at him branding policies that they perhaps support as racist and far right, and they think this man isn't listening with us. He's completely out of touch with what the nation thinks. It's not racist to say you should speak English and work a job if you want to live in this country.
Absolutely, Adam. This is where it leaves people in a very difficult position, because I want the British government to be successful because it impacts all of us here in Britain. But I think these comments, despite Keir Starmer saying time and time again we need a nicer kind of politics, we need to come together and unite, these are inflammatory remarks.
Look, let's just get one thing straight. It's not racist to want people to integrate, to put into the system and contribute to this country. At the end of the day, this is the analogy that I use. Let's just say I sell up and I go to Spain, take my family with us. I start working there. I take a gamble, I lose everything in 2 or 3 years, okay? I've got nothing. Spain will deport me straight away. That's not racist, because I have not been putting in long enough for them to then give me benefits or welfare, and I wouldn't expect them to. If I went to America and the same thing happened, they would deport me. So why are we suddenly racist? What has the left got a problem with that if people come here and they don't contribute, they have to go? Why? What, is it because we have many with brown skin, many with black skin? That's what they're trying to label us with. Who cares what colour skin they've got?
I couldn't care less.
Who cares?
Matthew, I think this is the problem people have got, is that this policy is something that many countries around the world will already do. If you go to America, you've given the example of Spain there, Adam, if you can't contribute to a country and you've only been there for a short period of time and maybe you don't meet some of these conditions, is it not right that you should go back to the country that you came from? You shouldn't be a burden on the people of that country. Is that racist to say that?
As I've already said, I think it was a mistake for Keir Starmer, and I suspect in retrospect he will probably think it was a mistake that he used the word racist for a policy which isn't a million miles away. It is different, but it's not a million miles away from plans that Labour have been looking into, which would double the time it takes for people who come here to seek or achieve indefinite leave to remain. Contrary to what Adam said before the break, I don't go around labelling people on social media as far right. What I absolutely did, and I will say it again and again and again, is the people who took part in those riots last year that terrified millions of my fellow citizens and others, those riots were far right. If you go to an asylum hotel and you try and be violent or you try to set fire to it with human beings inside,
a few dozen people,
categorically, that there were far more than a few dozen people involved in those riots. That is categorically far right. On the issue of racism, as I say, I think you've got to be incredibly careful when you use that word, particularly if you are Prime Minister.
Yeah,
But by the way, on the trust thing, because there was a lot of stuff going on there, just to quickly respond to that, I watched that interview that Keir Starmer gave this morning, and he said very specifically, I think, it was 11 hours ago, but I think I can remember it, that there was no trust involved. Now, unless we're saying that he's lying, then I think that needs to be made abundantly clear.
I'll just the complication is that what defines a trust? that under common law. Now, if you're giving a gift to somebody indefinitely, it defines a trust. And that's what tax experts are wrapping their head around. It's a very complicated matter. It's very legal. But we'll wait for the experts to get back to us, because I'm certainly not an expert in this situation.
I don't think there's any suggestion that he's broken any law.
No, absolutely not. It's just
he may have misled.
Whether he misled, exactly.
It's just another headache that he doesn't want. I think he was hoping that the digital ID announcement was going to bury away the huge scandal of the 739 grand with Morgan McSweeney. I mean, they've had a lot of scandals, and then now another scandal has arisen. It may come about that he's done nothing wrong, but it's just another big headache for Number 10.
I want to get into the context of this, because the digital ID stuff is important, because he was asked a very simple question: how does this stop illegal working? Right? There was no sufficient answer to that. He gave no clear example of how this would crack down on the black market, because it won't, because we know the black market is cash in hand, and it's people who don't put people through national insurance. And this is the problem. When you look at Steve Reed, the housing secretary, asked simple question: how many homes have you built? He then basically verbally goes after Camilla Tominey, saying he's not Wikipedia. I mean, that's ridiculous.
I know
politicians to be like
they haven't got good answers. And we were talking about how Keir Starmer resorts to lies and name calling, and the digital ID, it's another one where people feel like they're being lied to. I've got open ears for somebody who wants to make a good argument to me as to how exactly digital ID will stop illegal working, but I'm yet to hear it. And so a lot of people feel like something's not right here. We're not being given any good argument. We're told this is about illegal migration, but it feels like it's not, because no one's making good argument. I mean, why don't they actually first just follow through on their promises about stopping people working illegally on delivery bikes? They said, we are going to fine the companies £6,000, up to £6,000 per illegal migrant we find working for them, and potentially imprison directors of the companies.
Well,
all they've done,
on that today.
One person has been fined 26 quid.
To be honest with you, there was a big crackdown on that today, but we'll get to that at some point. Adam.
Look, let's just have this right. Keir Starmer didn't come up with this digital ID policy. Tony Blair did, and his, I believe, in my opinion, corrupt institute. At the end of the day, this does not stop one migrant from crossing the channel. This is about control. If you look at China, if people like me want to protest, which I do, people like me want to be big loudmouths on social media, what I do, they can turn me off. They can stop me travelling one day if everything is linked to our phone. They can turn off my social media. That is the dark path that we are going down. And he knows that, Keir Starmer. He's meant to be a human rights lawyer. Digital ID goes against everything that man apparently stands for. So why are they doing it? Who is pulling the strings? And we know it's Tony Blair.
Let me just respond to some of that.
Yes, please. Yeah.
First of all, I haven't quite worked out what I think about digital ID. I'm instinctively against it, because I think we have a proud tradition in this country of, broadly speaking, getting the balance between the state and individuals correct. What I would say is that every single country in Europe, as far as I know, and I'm not 100% whether this is only the European Union or it's Europe more widely, but every single country, as far as I know, apart from Britain and Ireland, do have ID cards. Now, you might say that there are some sort of differences between some of those ID cards and the sort of digital ID that is being suggested today.
Massive difference.
But I suspect that those hard copy ID cards in European countries, if they aren't fully digitised, will become digitised, because that makes some sort of sense. Doesn't mean I agree with them, but let's put this into a broader context.
Can I just
because I want to focus on the topic of tonight, which was really about the content of what the Prime Minister was saying.
Starmer is deeply unpopular. There's no question about it. I think it's an incredibly difficult time to be a Prime Minister, and I will assure you of two things. Well, I hope, because I've never met the man, but my feeling is that this is someone who does want to make the country a better place. I don't think he has an overriding guiding principle other than he wants growth and he wants NHS waiting lists to come down and so forth. He needs to be better at telling his story and perhaps, and this is a problematic thing, working out exactly what he does think on some things. He's more managerial, and I don't think that's enough. The final thing I would say very briefly is that if anyone watching thinks that these sorts of problems will not afflict Nigel Farage if he becomes Prime Minister, they're living in cloud cuckoo land. Why? Because an overwhelming majority of this country do not want Nigel Farage to be Prime Minister.
Well, he will
may become Prime Minister because that system, the same system that delivered Keir Starmer a very shallow but very wide majority, but 65 to 70, perhaps more, % of this country do not want Farage to be Prime Minister, he will face the same problems if he gets into number 10.
We have to leave it there, but you know, at the end of the day, the polls speak for themselves with Nigel Farage. His message is cutting through, and I think what the most important thing you can do is deliver the wishes of the British people.
And they're listening. Reform are listening to us. Labour are doing the opposite.
Exactly. Right, well, listen, I've got to get to a statement here from Downing Street. A spokesman has said this: Keir Starmer bought a field for his parents to use for their donkeys during his parents' lifetime. He did not give any thought at the time to any tax considerations. His only consideration was the well-being of his parents. He added that Keir Starmer engaged a leading tax KC to give him comprehensive advice on all the taxes paid. He confirmed that there had been absolutely no underpayment of taxes. And I just want to be clear, no one's assuming that there has been.